I'm so passionate about money. I'll be honest, I'm passionate about money and finance. And it goes back to these business owners. They start these med spas. They're super educated, but they don't understand the finance side of business. You know, you're probably a provider. You're having to be HR. You're, the marketing. You're doing it all, but then the bookkeeping and the finance side gets pushed to the back burner because a lot of times people think that bookkeeping is only for tax purposes, and it's not. You should be looking at your numbers monthly.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Cam Hemphill here, your host for Medical Millionaire. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune into the podcast. My goal is to give incredible value and insight for practice owners. I have an incredible guest on today, guys. We're constantly talking about numbers. We are constantly saying, you know what? If you're a practice owner, you need to know your numbers. But what does that truly mean? What does that truly mean? And today we're going to get into it, right? Because as you continue to grow your practice, as you continue to become the CEO of your aesthetics journey, you have to understand your numbers. You have to become a financier. You hear me talking about it all the time. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to bring an expert on. And the gal that I have with me today, guys, it's Stephanie Simkins. She owns Harper Faye Financial. She's been in finance for years, and she understands aesthetics. She understands how to talk about a P&L, a balance sheet, cost of goods sold. And really what we're going to try to talk about today is let's make numbers sexy, right? Because I talk to a lot of practice owners and I constantly hear, I'm not sure what my numbers are. I don't know. I get the sense that some people are afraid to talk about it. They don't want to open up about it. And maybe it's because you're too busy, or it's kind of a vulnerable subject, or it's boring. But today, we're going to make it sexy. So I want to welcome Stephanie Simkins to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Cam. I'm so honored to be on the show today. I'm a big listener and I've been listening for years. So I'm excited to finally be on and talk numbers.
Well, let's jump in. I really appreciate it. I know that you tuned in, and guys, we met through social. So she listened to an episode that I had, and she, dropped me a note on Instagram, and we started collaborating and talking. I said, I haven't had anybody on the show yet that can really dissect this. And if I have, it's been a while, right? And so where we are coming into, today is July 1st that we're recording, right? So we're officially halfway through the year. And as you guys look at putting yourself in a position to increase your EBITDA, to know your profitability, to know your numbers, to know your cost of goods, I think now is an absolute perfect time. So let's jump in, right? In aesthetics, we obsess over beauty, but behind every beautiful business is a powerful set of numbers. And so, Stephanie, you say that bookkeeping is sexy. I agree. I'm a financier. I've been studying finance for, 15, 20 years, investing, real estate, running businesses, selling businesses. Shit, I actually manage my own books. I'm a QuickBooks expert. I don't know if I told you that offline.
No, you didn't.
I'm not nearly as good as you, but I've had quite a bit of experience because I was forced to learn it, right? So as an entrepreneur, you have this idea and you bring this product to market, or if it's an aesthetics practice, you have location or whatever. But at some point, you really have to understand what that means. And so talk to us about that. Let's start there. What makes the back end of business just as critical as the front end?
Yeah. So I tell people all the time, your books are kind of the backbone of your business. They're going to give you a true representation of what's going on in your business. And you can have all the flashy marketing you want, but if you don't understand your numbers or have them accurate, organized, you're basically flying blind. And so making sure that you are looking at your numbers and you're understanding them. We hear it all the time. You just mentioned it. Know your numbers. What the heck does that mean? I don't know. You weren't taught this in school. And a lot of these med spa owners, they're highly educated. I couldn't do what they do. Goes right over my head. But they start these businesses and then they don't realize the importance of bookkeeping, because you're going to see what's working, what's not. Are you overspending in certain areas? Maybe you're not spending enough in certain areas. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes, and it's scary. People are scared to talk about their finances and their numbers. And admit that they need help, because it is something that they just don't understand. And that's kind of what I'm here for. Is like, I don't want you to be scared. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. And so talking about money is just like second nature to me. And it's something that I'm very comfortable with. And I want all business owners to be that way. I want you to be confident and understand what is going on inside your business.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that, because for me, talking about money and finance it's one of my favorite topics. I absolutely love it. I love to learn about investing, compounding interest. Like, I'm not going to go to the finance world here, guys.
Yeah.
I love to talk about passive income. I love to talk about, like, okay, what are margins, and what are healthy margins? What are non-healthy margins? How much should I pay my injectors in this use case, right? Like, should I pay them a commission plan? Am I overpaying? Am I underpaying? And it's absolutely critical. So that brings me to my question is what, I know you come from a strong numbers background, entrepreneur, family talked about money. Shoot, you've probably been investing in a 401k and IRA and stuff since you were little. So I get that sense, which is awesome. And I've been there as well. But when it talks about aesthetics, like, why are you so passionate when it comes to helping med spa owners understand their finances?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, I kind of just like accidentally got into this, and I'm so passionate about money. I'll be honest, I'm passionate about money and finance. And it goes back to these business owners. They start these med spas, they're super educated, but they don't understand the finance side of business. And I just saw this need where they're wearing 47 different hats. You're probably a provider, you're having to be HR, you're, the marketing, you're doing it all. But then the bookkeeping and the finance side gets pushed to the back burner, because a lot of times people think that bookkeeping is only for tax purposes, and it's not. You should be looking at your numbers monthly, if not more. And so I saw this need for these business owners, because they would just come tax time, which more than likely they're looking at their books in February, March of the next year. So they're looking, a year later at stuff that they did, and they don't know what's going on. So they're frantically trying to piece together, what did I spend, at Target? What was that? Was that business, personal? I don't even know. Let's just categorize it. So I saw this need, because they have so much going on that they didn't have the time or energy to put forth the effort that their financials deserves. You should be looking at your books on a regular basis. They should be up to date and accurate, because again, it goes to, you're driving your car, but you're driving it blind. You don't know if you should turn left or right. Do you need to stop? Do you need to speed up? All of that type of stuff. So that's kind of where I got into this world of aesthetics. Is it's so fascinating. It's competitive, and you have to be ready to change at the drop of a hat. And so if you don't know where, maybe you're bleeding, you don't know where to turn. And so this is kind of like why I got into it. Is I just saw these business owners who do very well, but when you ask them anything about their finances, they had no idea what was going on. And how can you lead a successful business if you don't know the data that's driving the business?
100% agree. I don't think, like, from a visual standpoint, talking about the car, right? I think that's a really good visual component.
Yeah.
You're driving down the road, guys. Like, if you're going to go left, you're probably going to use your signal. Maybe not all of you, but in some cases.
Exactly.
Right? Like, you get your tail lights work. You got to flip on the windshield wipers every once in a while. You got to put oil in the thing, gas in the thing. Like, there's signals. There's a dashboard component. So I love that visual component, because the audience that's tuning in, they're artists, right? These individuals, NPs, these practice owners, these providers, injectors, they're artists, and they are extremely talented. They could run circles around me at their craft. And, I have a tremendous amount of respect for you guys, because the amount of schooling you go through on the clinical side. And then you get into this world of business by default, be opening up a practice, or even working in a practice, or managing a practice, guys. And now you're almost like expected to learn business marketing, HR, shoot lease agreements, real estate stuff, right? And it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And the good news is there's experts in the industry that can help you understand it, make it easy, and make it flexible. And to build on what you were saying, Stephanie, if you wait, right? Like let's say you have your bank account set up, your credit card set up, and maybe you've connected it to QuickBooks Online, and then you wait till the next year or January, February, March to actually match everything up from the previous year. There's no way you're going to remember what's what. And if you hire a bookkeeper then, and you could speak on this too, I've actually done this. Guys, I have a lot of passion for what you're saying because I've been there. I've actually been there before many, many years ago where I waited and I thought it was during tax time. And, I didn't know how to match things up. I had no idea. And you expect a bookkeeper to come in and match all of these transactions up in a short period of time, and they know where to match them. They're just going to have a tremendous amount of questions for you, and it becomes this task that almost makes it unsexy, right? Mm-hmm. So businesses have meetings around finance, whether it's weekly, whether it's monthly. There's a meeting around finance. Like, let's look at the books. How are our numbers? What's the profit? What's the loss? What's the cost of goods? Where are we at? One cool thing I saw this morning, because I look at my numbers every single day, and QuickBooks, and they have rolled out this new AI stuff. I've seen that.
Brand new.
I'm like, wow, this is cool. I'm clicking in. It's like highlighting, hey, you were above here this month. You were below here this month. It's a brand new feature from what I can tell. But that's kind of cool too. So like to build off what you were saying is you have to have your bookkeeping correct, consistent, and updated so you can drive your vehicle straight down the road without crashing. So I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. No, it's one of the most crucial pieces of business that kind of gets put on the back burner. To tie back to aesthetics, it's kind of like people are like, I only need to wear sunscreen when it's sunny out. Or in the summertime. No, you need to wear sunscreen all year round. It's the same thing for your bookkeeping. You need to be doing your bookkeeping all year round because the damage that you're doing by not staying on top of it is going to hurt you so much later that, then you're paying hundreds, thousands of dollars to have it corrected. Same thing goes for wearing your SPF, It's very simple.
I could do better at that.
Yeah, we all could do better. I'm the same. I try to wear it every single day, but it's the same thing, Staying consistent is going to help you. And I think that's where business owners, again, it goes back to you're wearing so many hats that it's hard to. As a business owner myself, I have to outsource. I outsource the stuff that other people have a zone of genius for. Marketing. Mm-hmm. It's not my cup of tea. I'm not good at it. I don't enjoy it. And when I do try to do it, I just stress out. I find that I could be spending my time doing something else more beneficial for my business. Instead, I'm spending hours trying to put together a reel and, I just don't know how to.
Delegate tasks and activities to the experts, as the CEO of the company, you have to continue to fire yourself in certain roles, right? Yeah. And what happens a lot of times as a practice owner and entrepreneur, you have this great idea, it gets some momentum, it gets going, and you fall in this trap of doing administrative activities instead of focusing on your craft. And imagine if all you did was focus on your craft, and continue to fire yourself from administrative activities. And let's take bookkeeping as an example. Maybe in the early days, you watch a YouTube video, you take a class on QuickBooks, you learn some stuff, which I would encourage you to do. It's important to understand it, right? But at some point, you bring in an expert. At some point, you hire a head of finance, depending on the size, depending on where the practice is, right? But there's a call out here that I want to say that it's financial clarity is a growth accelerator. It's not a tax time necessity. It's truly a growth accelerator to know where you're at, guys. It's a non-negotiable. So pivoting for a second, let's get into some like P&L. Like, let's talk P&L. Why is knowing this report, P&L, walk us through it from the basics to knowing it. It's not just an annual, why it's so critical. Dive into that if you could.
Yeah, so the P&L is really going to give you a ton of insight into your business and how it's running. We'll just start from the basics. Your chart of accounts. When you sign up for QuickBooks, they're going to give you a basic chart of accounts. cool. It's not made for the aesthetics industry, let's say. You want to have something that's going to be custom to your business. So where you have income, don't lump your income into just one: services, sales. That means nothing. You need to break it out. Okay, you have retail sales, you have injections, you have estheticians, you have memberships. How much do you generate from memberships? Breaking it out, because then it's going to show you, okay, here is what I'm bringing in, and then here's what's going out. A lot of times you sign up for a subscription or some sort of like reoccurring charge. That adds up. Let's say you don't even need it. And so looking at all of those numbers is going to give you insight as to where your money's coming in, where your money is going. Is it working for you? And it goes back to, again, setting up a custom chart of accounts where you essentially want to have kind of 3 areas. So your income's going to be broken out into kind of the services that you provide. And then you have your cost of goods sold, which I like to think of it more of like variable expenses. So those expenses that are going to like fluctuate depending on what you have going on. So your cost of goods sold, your supplies. But I also like to include your providers, those payroll expenses in there as well, because that's going to fluctuate depending on your income. And then lastly is going to be your merchant fees, which that's just very basic, but breaking out. And then you have your fixed income, those expenses that aren't going to fluctuate much. So your rent, software, insurance, stuff like that.
So if I'm hearing you right, what you're saying is you can go set up QuickBooks, right? That's a monthly subscription. They got different versions. And this isn't commercial for QuickBooks. Definitely not getting compensated on that. But it's a powerful tool. It's been around. It's owned by Intuit, publicly traded company. It's a great tool. It's very common for most businesses to use. But if you just go get QuickBooks and you just start, you set up all your bank accounts, your feeds that come in, and you just have this generic template that they give you, you're already set up for failures. Is that what I'm hearing? You have to set it up like a templated version for the aesthetics owner. Is that right?
Yes, you want to have it because you want to be able to pull that P&L at any moment, and it should be able to tell you what's working, what's not working, where you're bleeding. So you want to have it structured in a way that's easy for you to read. If you have everything lumped together as here's all my income, that tells me nothing. What is the income made up of? Well, here's all of your payroll. Well, what does that payroll include? It probably includes providers. Maybe you have an esthetician. You have admin. Is that including owner's compensation? Breaking those out into categories is going to be so beneficial. And then it goes into your cost of goods sold as well, which are like direct links to the services that you're providing. How much are you spending on that? And if you don't have it set up in a way and it's all lumped together in one way, then what good is it to you might as well just do it in March of the following year, because your books they're not going to tell you a story. They're not going to be helpful. So setting them up from the very beginning is crucial.
Okay. Yes. It's critical, right? It's absolutely critical. And I know that there's a tremendous amount of practice owners that would go and set it up and just group it into profit and loss. Here's income coming in, here's expenses going out. And what you're saying is have specific categories, right? Mm-hmm. Have subcategories and know exactly where everything is flowing. And so talking about payroll, right? Because I know inside of this program, there's great reporting on payroll. There's ways to set up the payroll per provider so you know exactly what they're making and how much they're making on commission. You can break that out, right? You can break down the hourly or if it's a salary or whatever. Therefore, you can have these great conversations with these providers and say, hey, what is our goal for next quarter, next year, right? And get yourself in a position, say, hey, look, here's where you're at. Here's how much money you've made. What are you looking to bring in for the business for yourself as you go forward and kind of map this plan out? But if you don't have this, there's no way you can map it out. So understanding payroll, and this is a common question I hear all the time. What's the ideal percentage range for payroll as a percentage of revenue? So you got revenue,
Yeah,
guys. That's top line. What is the percentage of payroll that is there a sweet spot?
typically it's going to be between 25 to 35%. So it's going to, and every, practice is going to be a little different, depending on the services that you provide. But typically, that's usually where you want to stay in order to keep your profit margins as high as possible. Because what a lot of times people don't realize is you need to be including those payroll expenses into your pricing as well. Because I like to think of your providers, they're part of your cost of goods sold because they're a direct expense to the services that you're providing. And so, making sure that you understand that and okay, are we compensating our employees, accordingly? And then B, are our prices, matching, kind of factoring their price into it as well. At the end of the day, everybody has an hourly rate. I have an hourly rate, your injectors, everybody does. Okay. So you need to be able to factor that into your pricing as well. And so breaking that out is really going to help you to say, my gosh, like we need to increase prices because our payroll is astronomical. And payroll is always going to be everybody's highest expense. Mine is probably, your supplies and stuff, but payroll is probably top expense that every practice has. But that's the cost of doing business. But you, again, making sure that you're set up correctly, you're priced accordingly, it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, it's headcount's expensive, right? Like the higher the headcount, the better the provider, front desk, your payroll is going to continue to go up, and that should go up based upon revenue growth, right? So take our rule of thumb there, guys, 25 to 35%. I've heard people say 20% too. Just kind of depends on how lean you are and what kind of growth phase you're in, but it's definitely going to be your most expensive line item. There is a really cool report in QuickBooks that I like to run for me. And you can go in there, you can run P&L, and then you could break it down by percentage of income.
Yep.
Right. And it will show you your net, like your EBITDA, basically, your net income on a percentage basis. Right. So if you have like $1 million coming in for the year and you netted 300,000 and broken down by all different categories, you can actually see where you have the highest expense of income versus like the revenue versus the net income. That's always been a really valuable report for me to look at. You can break down software expenses, right? You can break down meals, travel, those types of things. And I always look at that as a flag of saying, okay, are we overspending somewhere versus where we were last quarter? Where should we be? And so I always found that report very, very powerful. Okay, so I want to talk about cost of goods, right? This is thrown around a lot as well, cost of goods. And in some businesses, I think it's less critical than aesthetics.
Yes.
Let's call it retail medicine. This is what it is. This is a brick and mortar location. Very critical for an inventory business for cost of goods. Can you dive in on that for a second? Because it's very different than like a software company.
Yeah. So typically, like I said, payroll is probably top and the next is going to be cost of goods. So we see it all the time is people just, lump it all together. But what they don't realize is that to get an accurate profit margin, to see where you need to be to have accurate pricing, you need to have those, again, broken out and making sure that you're tracking them correctly. Again, this goes back to being really diligent about your bookkeeping or hiring somebody who knows what they're doing, because let's say you're, purchasing multiple supplies. Well, some is for injections, some is for wellness. You want to make sure that those are getting categorized correctly. They might be on the same invoice, so you need to split that invoice. And people are like, whatever, I don't have the time, I'm just going to lump it all into one. There's such a huge importance of like making sure that everything is categorized correctly, because at the end of the day, I like to look at it this way. If your cost of goods are going up, your revenue should be increasing as well, because they have a direct correlation. If your cost of goods are going up and your income is staying the same or going down, something's going on. And in the world of that we live in today, inflation is a beautiful thing and everything is getting more expensive. So making sure that your prices are matching what you're paying. And I see it all the time where people, they're scared to raise their prices. They're like, because Stacy down the street, she only charges $9 a unit for Botox. And so, but then I'm still having like, my price that I'm paying keeps increasing, but I'm scared to increase my price. Well, guess what? I'm sorry, but that's not sustainable. Making sure that it's so crucial. And it's one of those aspects that you have to keep charge of it and keep a handle on it, because it could be a make or break for some of these businesses.
Yeah, and if you don't catch it early, you're too late, right? So if cost of goods is outpacing revenue, we have a problem. We have a serious problem. That's something you want to catch early. You probably have too much inventory on your shelf for one,
Exactly.
And you're discounting. Would you say those are the call outs? Like red flag would be you have too much inventory and you're discounting. And this is a recipe for disaster unless you're doing a ton of volume, which then leads to burnout and overwork and all that other stuff. So
exactly.
I love it.
And it's being strategic about, okay, you have these suppliers come in and they're like, oh, if you buy, X amount, we'll give you a discount. Well, okay, now you're paying, twice as much. Then you have inventory issues. You have too much. It goes in the discounting. You know what? Just go with what you needed. Forget the discount, because at the end of the day, you're going to end up discounting it for even more. So it's just like this revolving circle of people, they see these deals and they're like, oh, I got to jump on it. No, don't jump on it. It goes back to like purchasing a new laser. Oh, well, they said they'd give me a good deal on it and I got to get it now. No, wait, like, let's take a look. Let's run numbers. Let's see if this is feasible. Time and time again, people, they want that it's like the new shiny object syndrome, however you want to say it. Where they have to have the latest and greatest, and I have to have all this. No, you don't. Lean and mean. That's the best.
Lean and mean. It's not a entrepreneurship it's the last woman or man standing. That's what it is, because people just get knocked off. It's hard. It's very, very hard. It takes a tremendous amount of discipline and accountability and showing up time and time again. And I think that's why, like, if you scroll on Instagram or social media, aesthetics is sexy. The industry is sexy. It's growing. It's appealing. It's beauty, wellness. It's feeling good, looking good, building confidence, all these great things. But you can also get this misconception that it's this path of a quick buck. And it's truly not, guys. It's the path of running your aesthetics practice like a CEO, like a boss, and knowing what works, what doesn't work, being lean, just like with your personal bank account, right? If you live within your means and you have that discipline and accountability, you need to apply it to your business life, right? You read the book, Pay Yourself First or Profit First. It's great books. Have you read those, Stephanie?
I have, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's such a life-changing books.
Yes.
Those will help a ton. And, I think we can get caught up in this shiny object, like you said, of the deal for this bulk order of neurotoxins, or we go to a conference, there's this great deal on this laser. It's at some point, yes, of course it makes sense. But before you make that financial decision, know what you're working with. And you made a comment yesterday, Stephanie, when we were talking offline, that a lot of people you work with actually look at their bank account to see if they have money. Will you talk about that for a second? Because I think it's really important. Some people manage their finances by, hey, how much money do I got in my bank? Oh, cool, I can purchase it.
I could tell you the amount of people that I speak with that say, I just look at my bank account every single morning, and if there's money in it, then it's a good day.
Sure.
But that is not
That is a good day.
Yeah, it's a good day, but you also haven't factored in, okay, it's Monday, I have $30,000 in there, Friday's a payroll day. Maybe your payroll runs you $30,000 because some places it does. And so I think that's where people get in this, like, I don't know, it's like this false sense of security by looking at their bank to see, oh my gosh, I have money, I'm okay. But they're not looking at their finances to say, oh, I have a loan payment to make. I have a credit card payment to make. I have payroll. Like all of that type of stuff is, needs to be factored in. And again, it's going back to looking at your finances and your cash flow. I'll be the first to admit, probably every aesthetic practice has some sort of cash flow issue. Like, yes, you have money coming in, but you have a lot of money going out. And this is where people kind of get confused too is, oh, I have these loan payments. I have these credit cards. Okay, like those aren't going to hit your P&L. So yeah, maybe you're showing that you're positive, but that stuff's hitting your balance sheet. And that's where people need to, I feel like the balance sheet just never gets a shout out. It's kind of like low on the totem pole. Most people don't even know what it is, but it's so important to be able to know that because that's going to show you what's going in, what's coming out, and give you a true representation of like, okay, do I have money to pay my bills? Do I not have money? And yeah, I tell people, I'm like, honestly, just look at your bank account like once a month. To be totally honest, like half the time, I mean, I do it. I'm like, I look at it when I have to reconcile my books at the end of the month just because I have to pull my statements. But yeah, I've really just tried not to. And I look at my finance, like my accounting software to help me to make those critical decisions in my business so that I'm not, stressed out all the time. And that's a lot of the time, that's where people, they come to me and they're like, I can't sleep at night. I'm so stressed out. Like, how am I going to pay these bills? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And it's like, okay, let's sit down. Let's look at your numbers. Let's see what's going on so that you can sleep better at night. I don't want you to be stressed out. And I think this is, again, it goes back to people are so scared of money and numbers and finance because they just don't know what to do. And if I can help you to like read your financial statements, me sending them to you and not explaining it means nothing. I might as well not even send them to you.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that. I've been there too many years ago where I had the bookkeeper, I had the CPA, and then they would send me the statements with no explanation. And you have to figure it out. I'm sure there's somebody in the audience that's like, well, I got this bookkeeper, I got the CPA, they send me my financial statements. You have to know what they mean, right? So the bank account thing, I look at my bank account every day. I look at my brokerage account every day. I look at my bank account every day. My credit cards all sync up to QuickBooks, so I kind of got an idea what that is. And I know what my monthly spend is, and so it's pretty predictable for me. There's a reason why I like to look at my bank brokerage account on a daily basis. Not that it builds this confidence or this misconception of confidence, if you will. It helps put me in a position to know, is my money making money? And I don't want to turn this conversation into the whole finance.
The investment piece of
the investment
finance.
Piece of it. Yeah, but I do see a lot of entrepreneurs, practice owners, that they'll have all their profit come into the bank account. Okay. And the bank account is paying bills, or the credit card's paying bills. And then they have the automatic payment from the bank account to the credit card. And if I was to give a tip, look, interest rates have come down a little bit on like money market accounts and stuff like that. And guys, this is not financial advice. This is what I do. And it works, is I store my cash reserves in an account that actually pays me money. And if you have material cash in there, it can be substantial income, and you can obviously invest it in stocks and all that stuff, whatever you guys want to do. But if there's one little nugget that I could give, it's don't let your cash just pile up in some checking account or some savings account at Bank of America or Wells Fargo. House it in a high yield minimum, like, just a money market account where you can actually make money on your money. It could be enough money to make your laser payment and you don't even know about it. And we could have an entire other episode on that conversation, right? But it comes down to what you're saying is looking at your bank account, your cash flows. And I think for an aesthetics practice, pivoting for the cash flow conversation for a sec, when you're looking at your monthly business, okay, if you have, like, let's call it July 1 to July 1st, there's an entire month of revenue and expenses. And at what part of the month do you start making a profit? And I think that that's important to understand too, right? Because month one is today. You're probably doing injections and whatever, laser treatments, microneedling, wellness. Revenue's coming in, expenses are going out, but there's this point, and I want you to build on this with me, Stephanie. There's this point within, if things are running well and profitably, to where the rest of the month, the profit starts to roll in, even with the expenses continuing to accumulate.
Yes. So, yeah, I could go on about cash flow for days.
Did I open up a can of worms there?
Yeah, no. Like I said, it's the biggest issue that most business owners have. And it's not just in the aesthetics. I see it, in construction, in this. Too, you have to think about it is it's kind of a seasonal business in a sense, aesthetics. You have probably November, December, those are going to be huge months for you. So you need to be planning accordingly and making sure summertime kind of dies off. People are traveling. They're gone, they're away. They're not keeping up on their treatments. They forget about life. Let's just be honest. And so making sure that you're tracking to see too, that helps you plan for me, for instance, like I'm looking at, okay, when is the bulk of your income coming in? And then let's plan your bills. Let's paying your bills according to that so that you don't have that like stressful, oh my God, I don't have any money. How am I going to pay this, laser payment? How am I going to make payroll? Okay, let's be strategic about this. Yes, payroll can't really fluctuate with that. You probably run it on a biweekly basis. That's what nine times out of 10, most everybody does. But, being strategic about, your payments. And two, I like to look at it this way, like maybe you make an extra payment some months. And that's what a lot of people are like, oh, I can't do that. No, you can. You have the income. Let's do it now. And instead of just like, sitting in the bank, let's, put it towards principal so that you're going to have a lower payment. At the end of the day, like your laser should be paying for itself, but sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, it's just really tracking to see those trends of like when money is coming in the most, because then it helps you to plan too. Okay, what should we do the same thing? What have we been doing to increase this? Let's try it next month and the month after. And then you just kind of get in this like flow of, here's when the bulk of my money comes in the beginning of the month. And then I can just kind of not be stressed, but life's a little bit easier.
Yeah, you can drive, right? You have an understanding what's happening. Yes, it's definitely very much a seasonal business, and it's important for people to prepare, weather those storms, if you will, right? Because you want to be, again, this is a last person standing game in the world of entrepreneurship. And, I just want to stress on that. But let's talk about valuations, exiting, because at some point, everything has an expiration date. And I've said it a few times on my podcast before, guys, in other episodes, but there's an expiration date. Maybe it's in 15 years, maybe it's in 2 years, maybe it's 20 years. I don't know. You're either going to sell to a strategic or private equity or public, offering. I've seen some things happening there in the market. You're going to sell to a provider. You're going to pass it down to your kids, or you're going to close your doors. Like that's another that's a thing that absolutely does happen. So if it's me, if I'm going to trade time for money as a family man, and I want to make sure this IP that I build, this intellectual property that I build, we're talking a med spa here, guys. I want to make sure I can make it as valuable as I can. And I just think that's the ethical thing to do, is if you're going to trade time for money, make it operate correctly. Right? And so when you come to sell, because it's, these conversations are happening. In fact, I've had several conversations recently with practice owners. But you have to have clean books. And if you don't, it's hard to get somebody to acquire it. And I want you to talk about that from your expert opinion.
Yeah. So when you have somebody coming in who potentially wants to purchase your business, yes, they're probably buying maybe your brand, your vibe, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, they're buying your financials, and they are going to go through it with a fine-tuned fine tooth comb and look at every single transaction that has run through your account. They want to know everything that's coming in and everything that's going out. And they're going to question you on a lot of those transactions. It's like a little bit off the subject, but it goes back to these business owners. I see it all the time. The commingling of funds. Please, if there's anything, stop using your business account like a personal piggy bank. Stop that. Because, they're going to question why, you have this, but is that necessary for the business? No. So they're going to go through your financials and they're going to look at, okay, what are some discretionary expenses? What are non-essentials? And then what are those owner preferences, which we all know what those are, owner's expenses. You just using, like a personal piggy bank. So having those accurate, clean, up-to-date books is so crucial because, again, you don't want to be going through and as the business owner, you don't look stupid because you don't know what this is for or what that is. It just makes it makes your business not look healthy in a sense that it would be enticing for somebody to purchase when you have all these questionable expenses that what is this? What is that? You're the sole provider. So we're basically once you're gone, there's all our income, things like that, and these big private equity firms, they have teams who this is all they do is they just go through business financials line by line. And if you don't have somebody on your team who's going to help you to decipher through those transactions, you're kind of setting yourself up for, a low ball offer, in my opinion. So, taking what I like to ask people is, what is your goal by owning this? Do you want to walk away and then be done? Or do you plan on, maybe you love what you do, but you just don't want the business side, so you want to stay on? Okay, how are we going to be strategic about this? And having your financials line up with what your goals are at the end of the day. Just because you sell doesn't mean you need to retire. A lot of these people who are selling, they're young. They're going to go on to their next adventure. They're not retiring. So what is your end goal from this business sale? Okay, let's make sure your finances line up with that. Because when you are ready, you're going to have everything in line. Nothing's going to be questioned. You're ready to go.
Yeah, well said. I mean, the point you made there on the commingling is very, very real. Using the business as the personal bank account and kind of running, personal expenses through there. I think everybody's somewhat guilty of that, right?
Oh, I mean, I do it. I did it the other day. I used my business credit card and bought groceries. I didn't even think about it. I just hit, here we go.
Yeah,
and happens. I was like, oops. I mean, it happens, but
yeah.
Be smart about it.
It happens. Be smart about it. I totally agree. And you made a really good point of you're setting yourself up for a low ball offer because you don't have the P&L set up correctly. You don't have the balance sheet set up correctly. You're not paying yourself correctly. You're just kind of dipping in and taking cash from the business here and there. And, whatever you're spending the money on, I don't know. And that's obviously up to you guys. But you made a really good point there, because if you set it up and you structure it correctly and the business is producing revenues, the revenues coming in, the P&L set up correctly, the balance sheet set up correctly, you are, and I don't want to get off too much topic, but you're maybe set up as an S corp, or you own part of your business as an S corp, and you pay yourself a W-2 salary within that S corp from the LLC. Well, now those expenses can actually go on the balance sheet.
Yep.
Right? Versus the P&L. And I want you to talk a little bit about that, because that's real important when these practices trade on EBITDA. They trade on net income. Right? And I think that's important to understand too.
Yeah. So, with EBITDA, there's going to be add backs. And so one of the top ones that's going to be added back is owner's compensation. And a lot of people don't realize that gets added back. Or if you have a lot of people have their spouse on payroll. or a close family member. Stuff like that is going to be added back in, or those one-time expenses, you got a remodel or a certain repair, those one-off type things, they're getting added back. And I think that a lot of people, if you're strategic enough about it, you already are planning for that. And
Yes.
you know that those are going to be added back so that, okay, I'm trying to get top dollar for my business. Because at the end of the day, who isn't? You've worked so hard for this. And yeah, maybe you're not going to get exactly what you're hoping for, but you can get as close as possible. And so just understanding how it all works is huge. And the funny thing is, when you're going to sell versus when you are actually running the business, I heard this recently. It was, you run your business now because you're trying to save on taxes and you're trying to save money. But when you're going to sell, you want to not save money. You want to try to make as much money as possible. And so it's like this crossroad where you're like, what do I do? And so just being strategic and having somebody on your team that understands that at the end of the day, when you do go to sell, is going to be so beneficial.
Yeah, that's a good point. We talked to us about add backs really quick. Just lean in on that for a sec, because it's really important for them to understand.
Yeah, so add backs are essentially going to be stuff that's kind of added back to your net profit. So I talked about your owner's compensation, those one-off expenses that, okay, maybe you had to pay an attorney a large amount of money to write up some contracts, that type of stuff. You did a big improvement on your building, stuff like that. It's going to be added back so that at the end of the day, the value is actually higher so that you're making more. But it goes back to, you need to make sure that you are tracking that correctly. And you have documentation to prove that that should be added back. Because you can't be like, oh yeah, I put $20,000 worth of, improvements into my building and you're buying it. Well, where is that? What is that $20,000 made up of? Where is it? So it goes back to documentation. Do you have it documented? All of that type of stuff. So again, it's these expenses, I like to say, that are going to be added back to your net profit to increase the value of your business.
Okay, I like it, and I want to give some math behind it. Okay, to help the audience understand how material this can be on an exit.
Yeah.
So let's look at this as an example. Let's take a $1 million EBITDA practice, and you're going through an acquisition, and there happens to be 10% of that is add backs. So you got $100,000 of add backs, say for example, and let's say that in this scenario, this particular medical aesthetics practice trades at 5x EBITDA. The EBITDA is doing $1 million, and you got $100,000 that ends up coming back in add backs. How much money is that at the end of the day?
Oh gosh, now you're putting me on the spot.
Putting you on the spot. But let's just take you got the 100,000. You got the $1 million EBITDA practice. It trades at 5x. So you got a $5 million exit right here. 10% of that is 100,000. So you got 100,000 that's now add backs. So that times the 5, it's 500 grand on the multiple.
So
that's what I'm talking about, guys. Yeah. So 5.5 million. And a $500,000 check, like when you talk 5 million versus 5.5, it may not sound, you're like, 5 million, 5. Who cares at this point? But no, it's $500,000.
Yeah. That's a lot of money.
That's a ton of money. And to your point of having it documented correctly and being prepared and well positioned can get you guys the most amount of money for your practice. And that's what you deserve. And so, again, having a conversation with the professional, having a professional look at your books, educating yourself on finance, guys. This is a really material conversation, because you may look and say, you know what, I'm not going to hire a bookkeeper. I'm not, I don't need any more expenses, but the investment is it's a non-negotiable. It's an investment in the business that's absolutely required. And if you get the right firm and right group with you, the ROI on it is enormous. And so that's something want you guys to absolutely know, is how critical that is, because that's getting a pretty meaty, when it comes to financial success, like when it comes to legacy income, right? That's really, really important to understand. And like what Stephanie said earlier, these private equity groups, these financiers, if you will, they're all Ivy League school guys. I've had many conversations with them. All they study is finance. They run circles around P&Ls and balance sheets and valuations, and their entire job is to make acquisitions and get the best deal possible for their group. They're going to try to beat you up. Like, that's what they do. They want the best deal. It's like selling a house.
Yes.
And it's the same thing, right? If you're going to sell it, you want the most value. If you're going to buy it, you probably want to get the best value. It's the same thing. So you got to have common ground somewhere and have the agreements and finances in order to make it happen.
No, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and going back to the house, it's like, if you want top dollar, you're going to clean your house. And, you're going to make sure that it is organized and accurate and, everything's in line. Because if it's not, then I'm going to come in with a lowball offer, because why would I buy this thing that really, I don't know, is it a good buy? Is it not a good buy? I have no idea. Yes, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, these, private equity firms, this is what they do 24/7. This is all they do. And you don't. And so having somebody on your team to help you is just going to benefit you so much. And the ROI will just, yeah.
Well, Steph, I know you're super busy, and I really appreciate you joining and giving the audience so much intel and education. And again, that's the entire purpose of all these episodes, guys, is to continue to educate you from a business lens, right? Whether we're talking about marketing, we're talking about finance, we're talking about systems, processes, sales training, consulting, all this stuff. It's super, super important. And so before you go, Steph, if you could just give us like one final thought. If a med spa owner, medical aesthetics practice owner, if they could take one step, right, like this week, to become more financially clear, what would that be?
It's simple. Just look at your P&L, because so many people don't. They're scared of it. They're scared to see what their business is doing. And it's one simple step to look at it, and then you build from there. And then maybe you work on creating a custom chart of accounts. And then you start to really break down, okay, where am I spending? Where's my money coming in? But if you don't start with the basics of just looking at your financial statements, and if you don't know how to read them, ask for help. Like, Google it, reach out to me. I would gladly to you. But it's just simple as that. Just look. Because if you don't look, you don't know where you're going.
Yeah, it's like, if I want to build confidence within myself and, anti-age, I'm probably going to go hire, an aesthetics practice owner or provider. And if you guys want to, get familiar with your numbers and understand how to drive the car and how to drive the medical aesthetics practice to get the most value possible, you're probably going to hire a financier. Right. And so I think it just makes sense. And so, Steph, I thank you so much for your time. If people want to find you, if they want to connect with you, if they want to, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah. So they can go to harperandfayfinancial.com and they can book a call. If not, I'm on social on Instagram and Facebook, harperandfayfinancial.com or Harper and Faye Financial, excuse me. And yeah, they can reach me there, and I would love to connect and help to answer any questions and make, finances not scary, because it shouldn't be. It should be not fun, but, it's a necessary part of business that should not be
Make your book sexy. I'll leave it at that. Make your book sexy. Make them, where you're confident in showing them.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone through a transaction myself, and when the group wanted to see financials, it was so easy to send them over. The faster you send them over and they look great, they're like, okay, these guys have their shit together.
Exactly.
And you could lead with confidence. So make it sexy, guys. I can't agree with her more. So Stephanie Simkins, Harper and Faye Financial, guys. She's an expert. She's awesome. We had a wonderful call yesterday offline preparing for this. So thank you so much for joining.
Yeah.
There you have it, guys. I'll leave it at that. Have a wonderful week. Until next time, happy injecting.